in terms of what we do now, I think that pretty much everything we're doing, our email system, the SharePoint, the online learning systems and so on, are all key to what we're doing. The other thing too is in order to grow as a college like that, this whole curriculum issue with the curriculum database, having a repository for all the curriculum and being able to keep up with all the changes in industry and so on. I think that having a database of all that curriculum is going to be huge there as well, so once that goes ahead.
How do the educational technologies here contribute to learning at NSCC?
Well, the way it's operating right now, what the hope is that anything that's offered in the classroom, any of the curriculum that's being taught in the classrooms, will be essentially the same outcomes if you do it online or in the classroom. And so with the systems that we're running here, the idea is to try to make it as transparent as possible. Not to necessarily emulate the classroom, but at least have the same outcomes so that the students come out with the same amount of knowledge and the same type of knowledge and so on, that when they get to the other end, that there should be really no significant difference between them and someone who's taken it in class. And so we support them with the Learning Manager, as you're aware of, which is basically just it's more of a database structure that it puts structure around the class that you're offering online in terms of where do you store your materials, how do you do your testing, how do you hand out assignments. Then we also promote the discussions within the courses. You're not only organizing the students, but providing them with a method of collaborating and discussing the content with other students and the instructor within the Learning Manager. And basically it's a repository for all of the materials that they would need in that course, probably with the exception of their textbook. I think when you look at the technology, I mean, we've made great strides. We're an organization that's 14, 15 locations, well actually more than that, probably about 19 locations with the learning centers, with a wide area network that ties everybody together, and from an infrastructure standpoint, we're probably way further ahead than a lot of colleges. Even with online learning, we've been doing this now for 11 years. We've been doing apprenticeship training since the beginning, which no one's doing still at this point in time. There are little pockets here and there across the country that's doing apprenticeship training, but we tend to be the leaders in that particular area. So I think that in some of the things that we do, we're out on the edge, but and sometimes we're dragging people kicking and screaming behind us. But I think that it doesn't always mean that having the everything at the highest level is necessarily what you want. With online learning, we're finding more and more that because the faculty put structure into the course when they develop an online course, and then other faculty are using it, we're starting to get more of a consistency in that development. And with the blended learning that we've started with, in a lot of cases, the testing, for instance, and evaluations are being loaded into the TLM, and everyone uses the same testing, the same evaluations and assignments and so on. And when that happens, it gives a more consistent product. So if you can provide flexibility and access by adding some technology with no significant difference in the learning, that's a good thing. The browser's the tool now.
Yeah.
Instead of having to worry too much about, well, even with word processing, you can do your word processing online if you want now.
Google Docs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things you can do with it. So that really helps level it out. I guess in North America, there's a bit of a push away from learning management systems and going into an open system. And I know we've tried that here in the past. We've had a couple of people say, well, I really don't need that structure. Let me do it on my own. And then a couple of weeks later, they'll come back and say, I don't know where my students are. They're all over the place, and I've got emails all over the place, and I don't know exactly how to organize them. And that's what the tool is there for, is to provide a structure and an organization for the students and the faculty so that they can stay on track. And again, they need to focus on the learning, and the instructors need to focus on the learning as well, as opposed to record keeping and all those sorts of things. This way it's all done for them so that they don't have to worry about it as much. And of course, with things like even the Google Apps now, we're running into difficulties with that Bill 19, the legislation for privacy, where we're not supposed to be storing things outside the country and that sort of thing. So that may be an issue down the road as well. I see personally there's a difference between education or learning and communication. And I have people come in every day and say, why don't we use instant messaging in our courses? Well, it has a communication piece, but not necessarily an educational piece with it, because I don't see training being delivered 128 characters at a time like that. I don't know if there's that much value to it. If you had it or you didn't have it, does it make a difference? But I think that for the most part, when it comes to all the technologies that we have, one of the big things that we really need to do here is get the training out there, have people trained to be able to use them, because they're absolutely no good to us without training. A lot of people are a little afraid of the technology because they think it's going to replace them, but in fact it's always turned out, in my experience, because I was at another college before here where we did similar things. We didn't have the internet, but we were doing distance ed with computers and so on. It's always increased the number of faculty required, but along with that, we're now doing twice or three times as many students as we could have put through the system before the technology came along. The only other issues that I think I've ever run into, and they haven't been all that great around here, because we've been able to generate revenues as we go along here as well, but just the budgetary considerations, those are always a bit of a stumbling block. If you don't get enough communication out, you have two different committees doing the same thing in two different ways, and that becomes an issue as you go forward with it as well, and that's one of the things I'm hoping that we've got a few committees going right now, and the Learning Technologies Strategic Plan is, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out, because that will define that process. But a lot of the technologies tend to be things that start at the technical point. And let's get a technology in place and then figure out how to put things into it. Where it's so much, it's solution looking for a problem, exactly, instead of stating the problem and then finding a solution for it. And I would, in terms of educational technologies, I mean, this is just another one that's in there, and this is something that might even tie into things like learning management systems and whatnot. There's a whole variety of things I think could be done with it. Well, I think as a portfolio college, it would be one of those root things. This is like PeopleSoft or TLM or whatever, the base systems. I always look at that sort of thing here. In general, we have a lot of base systems that we use, like PeopleSoft. Right. And then you've got all these cutting edge technologies that people want to go out and experiment with, but you still have to, at the end of the day, you got to come back to the base technologies and that. But something like this, if we're going to be portfolio driven, sometimes this sort of thing, when I think about ePortfolio, I think of applied arts and new media. Right. But I think that there's a spot for it, because of the flexibility and the way, if you're databasing it like that, and you can drill down in the data in different ways, it makes sense to have everybody do that rather than just the IT people. Because that, like I said before, when I think of ePortfolio, I'm thinking of the artifact, and if I'm in the IT field or in the new media field or arts, I'm thinking of portfolio in the sense that they would, and it's something that you show. But this thing here would be way more efficient to try to put things together for everybody. So I think it would be one of those structures that would lie on the bottom, like PeopleSoft sort of thing. Yeah. Probably, I think in some cases when you leave the college, the artifact goes on the shelf and the portfolio stops at that point, doesn't continue on. In this particular case, this is something that it would make sense to keep it up to date, because it would be easy if you want to change jobs, you want to apply for something, you can find the material in a much easier manner. But where does it all get stored? Is it sort of the thought today that we would store this for them? To be quite honest, when I did my portfolio, I hated doing the reflective pieces because it's not what I do. Yeah. I'm not a writer and that, but doing it this way would probably make more sense to me. I was just thinking, if you went in and put in a few tidbits here and there, all of a sudden you've got it done, but you didn't have to sit down and do it all at one time. Yeah. And it's actually, it's all collated for you by the system this way. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah. When it comes down to that, with IT growing, with us growing, with academic services growing and everything, I think the biggest thing is trying to get the three areas together to make sure that we're going in the right direction. Because it's the way I think it should go, and hopefully it's right, is that the academic division should define what it is that we need to do, and then IT should provide the basic infrastructure that we need to run all this stuff, like networks and providing faculty with the technologies that they need, and then online learning would provide that learning technology to match it all together.